All right, let's jump right in. I want you to picture this. You're inside a dimly lit tent. The air is just thick with tension, and the candlelight is flickering, dancing across a mother's face, catching this look of pure, desperate determination. She's about to kick off a plan that won't just break her family, it's going to echo for generations.
Her son, Jacob, is terrified. I mean, his hands are literally shaking as he's trying to wrap this coarse goatskin around his arms. It's a crude disguise for a massive lie. He knows this is wrong, a deep betrayal. He even says to his mom, "What if Dad figures it out? I'll get a curse, not a blessing." But his mother, Rebekah, she is not backing down. She's convinced she's an agent of destiny.
And right there, with those words, Rebekah basically becomes what you might call a spiritual gambler. She grabs her son, her eyes are just blazing with intensity, and she says she'll take the curse herself. She's willing to risk divine punishment to lock in what she believes is God's plan for her favorite son. It's one of the most intense, all-in statements in the entire Bible. A huge gamble, and the price tag is going to be way higher than she could ever imagine.
So on the surface, this looks like a pretty open and shut case of family betrayal, right? But was it really that simple? Was this just a straightforward con job, or is there a much deeper, more complicated game being played? A game where the person everyone thinks is the victim might have been in on it the whole time. Let's dig in. Okay, so to really get what happened, we've got to meet the players in this high-stakes family drama. And believe me, every single one of them has their own desires, their own secrets, and they are all on a collision course that's about to change everything.
So you've got the father, Isaac. He's old, he's blind, and all he wants is to pass on the family blessing to his favorite son, Esau, the rugged outdoorsman. Then there's the mother, Rebekah. She's fiercely protective of her favorite, Jacob, the quiet, thoughtful one, and she's absolutely convinced that a divine prophecy has already picked Jacob for greatness. And right in the middle, you have the two brothers, one who already sold his birthright for a bowl of soup, and the other who's now about to steal it with this elaborate, dangerous lie. The stage is totally set for a tragedy.
All right, let's start with the classic take on this story. This is a tale of betrayal, plain and simple, fueled by this toxic cocktail of fear, favoritism, and some really, really misguided faith.
Now this is where their psychology gets really fascinating. See, Jacob isn't some bold mastermind. He's more of a logical coward. His first reaction isn't "this is wrong." It's, "Uh-oh, what if I get caught?" He's starving for his father's approval, and that need is so deep it just short-circuits his moral compass. And Rebekah? She's coming from a place of what one source calls misplaced religious fervor. She feels this divine sense of crisis, like if she doesn't step in and rig the game, her husband's bad judgment will mess up God's plan. She thinks she can handle the cost of the sin, but she has no clue what that's actually going to look like.
And this is the moment. The whole plan nearly comes crashing down. The disguise is good, the clothes smell right, the goatskin feels hairy, but something is just off. You can feel Isaac's suspicion hanging in the air. His own hands are trembling as he feels the fake hair. He can sense something is deeply, deeply wrong. But in this version of the story, he lets his physical senses, touch and smell, win out over his gut feeling. And he gives the blessing.
But wait, what if we've been reading this whole thing wrong? What if Isaac wasn't fooled at all? What if the wool, so to speak, wasn't actually pulled over his eyes? There's this really compelling counter-theory coming from scholars in the Jewish Bible Quarterly that suggests the one person we've all assumed was the victim was actually pulling the strings.
Now, this idea completely flips the entire script. Was Isaac just a confused, frail old man? Or was he a pretty sharp patriarch making a tough call through a kind of carefully staged play? Let's look at the evidence.
So check this out, because the pieces don't really add up for a simple deception. First, Esau had already shown he couldn't care less about his spiritual inheritance when he sold it for lunch. Second, his foreign wives were a constant source of grief for his parents. And then you have the really telling details. Isaac says, out loud, the voice is Jacob's voice. And the blessing itself, it talks about the smell of the fields. That's Jacob's territory, the shepherd, not Esau the hunter. So in this reading, the whole deception is really just plausible deniability. It lets Isaac bless the son who's actually fit for it, Jacob, without having to have a massive, ugly confrontation with his favorite but unworthy son, Esau. It's a calculated move.
Okay, this is where it gets really cool. When you zoom out from all the family drama, you start to see this hidden structure in the text itself. It's like a literary blueprint, and it suggests this whole story was put together with this incredible symmetry and purpose.
It's an ancient technique called a chiasmus. The easiest way to think about it is like a story sandwich or an arch. You build up a series of events, you hit this huge turning point in the middle, and then everything on the other side mirrors the first half, but in reverse. And the most important part of the whole story? It's always that piece right in the middle, the X. It's the author's way of putting a giant spotlight on the main theme.
And Jacob's life fits this pattern perfectly. It's brilliant. First, he deceives his father. That's A. Then he runs away from his brother. That's B. The absolute center of his life, the X, is that famous story where he wrestles with God, gets wounded, and is renamed Israel. After that turning point, the whole pattern flips. He goes back and reconciles with his brother Esau, B', and then, years later, he himself gets deceived by his own sons, using a goat just like he used a goat to deceive his father, A'. The deceiver becomes the deceived. It's not just a story, it's a perfectly balanced moral equation.
Now, beyond the family drama and the clever literary structure, this story makes us ask a really profound question about something we all want. What exactly is a blessing?
When Esau finally gets back and figures out what happened, his cry is just gut-wrenching. It's this shriek of pure anguish that fills the tent. He's not just mad, he's completely baffled. And he asks his father this question that just hangs in the air, and it reveals this deep, deep flaw in how this family understood love and favor and even God.
You see, this whole mess is fueled by a zero-sum worldview. They believed there was only one blessing to go around, a single slice of pie. If Jacob got it, that meant Esau had to lose it. And this idea that blessing is this scarce, limited resource, it just breeds desperation and manipulation, and in the end, tragedy. And as one source points out, that same toxic zero-sum thinking tragically plagued religious history for centuries, with different groups insisting they had the exclusive rights to God's favor.
But this whole idea of a zero-sum game, of fighting over a limited blessing, it isn't just some ancient concept. It's deeply, deeply human. And that's why this story, thousands of years later, still hits so hard. Because it's not really just about them. It's a mirror. It shows us the Jacob, the grabber, the supplanter that's still alive and well inside all of us.
I mean, think about it. We all wear masks, right? At work, you put on a certain persona to try and get ahead, to win the blessing of that promotion. On social media, we build this perfectly curated version of our lives, hiding all the messy stuff. And how many times have we tried to help God out, using our own clever schemes to force the outcome we want instead of just waiting? Just like Isaac, we rely on what feels right or looks good, and we end up getting fooled.
So, what's the big takeaway here? Jacob got what he wanted. He got the blessing, but he immediately lost everything else. His home, his family. He spent the next 20 years as a lonely fugitive, wandering in the wilderness, sleeping with a rock for a pillow. And the mom who cooked up the whole scheme, she never saw her beloved son again. It's a powerful warning. A blessing you get through deceit isn't really a blessing at all. It's a curse in disguise. You have to ask, was it worth it?
And that leaves us with this final thought. Jacob's entire journey was really about him being forced to take off his masks. Years later, wrestling with God, he finally admits who he is. I am Jacob, the deceiver. And only then is he given a new name, Israel. So maybe, just maybe, the real blessing isn't about getting what we want through our clever plans. Maybe it's about having the courage to just show up as our true selves, flaws and all, and trusting that that's enough.